What's up, guys? I'm BTC. We got a ton of information from Jeff Kaplan yesterday talking about confirmed new characters, new game modes, and all sorts of other changes made to Overwatch. Yesterday, during the launch of the Storm Rising event, Jeff Kaplan did a fairly extensive Q&A, gave us a ton of information, new heroes, new game modes, all the stuff we can expect for the rest of the year. So we'll start with some of the biggest things, which is the new heroes that we're going to be getting. So he talked a little bit about Echo, saying that the character is coming along really nicely, and they really like how it's working, which means that the character is in at least some form of a playable state. My guess is that they probably have a lot of the abilities either mostly done or completely done, and they're just waiting on any sort of fine-tunements with the actual character model in-game and maybe some other artwork and voice lines and that sort of stuff. But he did confirm that Echo will not be Hero 31. He also said that Sojourn will not be Hero 31 either. Sojourn is that captain that's talking to you throughout the duration of the mission. This is what she looks like. She was actually hinted at in some other previous stuff as well. So here's an image, you can see her right here, and she was also in one of those earliest trailers where it was flashing a whole bunch of different characters on the screen. So this is her right here. That is Sojourn. She's a captain in Overwatch. And Jeff Kaplan didn't say that she isn't a hero or she is a hero. He simply said that she isn't going to be Hero 31, which you have to kind of read between the lines when you're listening to Jeff Kaplan and Overwatch and Blizzard devs in general, because they kind of say things without saying things. So the fact that she's not Hero 31 seems to indicate that she might well be another hero at some point, but just not going to be the next one. Another fairly big hero announcement is Jeff Kaplan 100% confirmed that Junker Queen will be a new character. Now, it certainly doesn't sound like she's going to be Hero 31. My guess is it would probably be like Hero 33 or 34, a little bit further back. But he says that they're in the process of making her. He didn't say if she's in a playable state or if it's still kind of concept phase, but that they are really happy with the way that the character is being designed. Now, my guess is it's probably going to be either damage or tank. I don't really see Junker Queen being in the support role, so it's probably going to be damage or tank. And if it is in the tank role, I think it's going to be more along the kind of bruiser route, where it's more focused on dealing damage as opposed to protecting your teammates sort of deal. About Maximilian, he says that they have some pretty big plans for the character and the story surrounding him, and that he definitely would be willing to sell out any other member of Talon if he needed to in order to save his own skin. Now, they already have the character modeled, and it's not quite the same as putting the character in the actual game, but it does seem like they're further along with Maximilian than they are with some of the other characters, so it's possible that Maximilian could be a new hero sometime soon as well. He also briefly mentions that the new character that we see teased at the end of the Storm Rising event is in fact an Omnic, but he really doesn't say any more about that. They did mention two other possible heroes as well, the first being Jetpack Cat. And Jeff Kaplan responds by saying, no, we're never going to add it. And some people have taken that as face value, but if you listen to his actual response, he says, no, we're never going to add it. Then he starts laughing, and he says that would be as ridiculous as adding a hamster, which of course we got with Hammond. Now, if you didn't know, the dev team was really split on adding Hammond to the game. Half the team thought it was amazing, the other half thought it was going to completely ruin the game. And overall, the response to Hammond was pretty positive, and the character is being used at all levels of play, including the professional level. So the character was a success, and just from the way that Jeff Kaplan is responding, it sounds like he just likes messing with people because he thinks it's funny. He's like, no, we're never gonna add it. I mean, we added a hamster, right? That would be ridiculous. So that's kind of the impression that I get from him. Whether they're gonna add Jetpack Cat or not, I don't know. I think he just thinks it's funny. The other character that they mentioned is Mama Hong, which was just basically a very small image on the bottom left, and he talks about how that character is basically the second most controversial character that has ever been talked about in the Overwatch game, where the first one was Hammond, and then the second is Mama Hong. And because of that largely positive response to Hammond, I think what's going to end up happening is Blizzard is probably going to release 3 or 4 serious characters and then they might end up releasing a more silly character to just kind of spice it up. So you have characters that are from Talon or from Overwatch or whatever, and then you might throw in something just kind of off the wall, like a hamster or a jetpack cat or a mama hong. Especially as the game gets older and older, I think they're going to need to kind of spice it up more, so that's probably what's going to happen. They have a bunch of serious and then a silly. Moving on to the map itself, Jeff Kaplan confirmed that Havana will be on the PTR very soon, and it will be a payload map. He said this version will have some difference, there'll be no storm, and it'll be a different time of the day. Now, I do want to point out one of my criticisms from the event itself, which is the storm wasn't really a storm. It was a very light breeze and some drizzle, and that was it. Like, I was expecting there to be really strong winds, maybe it was pushing you around and that sort of stuff. Now, obviously, you can't have that in a regular map, but in a PvE kind of event map, yeah, sure, you can have all that kind of stuff because it's perfectly fine. You don't have to balance it around competitive gameplay. But we didn't get any of that. We got a light drizzle and, you know, a small amount of wind. He also mentioned that there's a very cool PvP surprise coming to the PTR, but didn't really give any more information than that. It could be a new game mode, it could be a new smaller map for some of the existing deathmatch or any of that sort of stuff. We don't know. He just said there's something really cool, it's PvP related, and it's going to be on the PTR soon. Moving on, he says the dev team is shifting focus to work on features. Some of them have been requested by players, others have not. In fact, a brand new feature that no one has ever asked about or heard about is being added to the game very soon, before or during the anniversary event. And the anniversary event starts the 3rd week of May, which is just over a month away, so that's really, really soon. He says this thing has never been requested and nobody seems to know anything about it, so what it could be, I have no idea. He also talks about a brand new legendary skin for D.Va that is going to break the internet. Now, usually when something is supposed to break the internet, it's kind of on the risque kind of side, but I seriously doubt it's going to be anything like that. I think it's more going to be possibly just something really awesome that people are going to be talking about. I don't think there's going to be any sort of tie-in with other properties like Marvel or anything like that. You know what Fortnite did with Marvel and Thanos and all. I don't really think they're going to do anything like that. He also said that later on in the summer and early fall, there are going to be 2 features added that have been requested by the community. Now, one of these could very well be the role queue, we don't know, but he did say that neither of these will be guilds. He says that the dev team does want to add guilds to the game, and they have some really cool ideas for it, but it's just incredibly challenging from a technical perspective, and they need to have it work on console as well, and that's where a lot of the problems are coming in. And when he talked about role queue and the 222 locked mode, he said that he really supports it. It's definitely something he wants to add to the game. He thinks it would be a lot better. It would make it way easier to balance the characters when they're locked in like that. And he specifically said that Brigitte is one of the biggest examples of this. And he's actually said this in the past as well, where he said Brigitte is really strong when you can have her as a 3rd support in a lineup, but when you have her in a 222, she's just absolute garbage and she doesn't work at all. And I completely agree with Jeff Kaplan on this. In a 222 lineup, Brigitte is just not very good at all. You're better off running any other combination of healers, which is why when the character first got released, she wasn't actually getting used all that often. It wasn't until people started running triple support they realized, oh hey, now this character works unbelievably well and is super powerful as long as you have it a triple support lineup. So in that case, if they do a 222 or a role queue, they lock that in, they're going to have to do some serious rework, not quite reworking, but retuning for Brigitte. He actually does talk about reworking in a second here, but one of the other issues with the role queue is the queue times. They have a really big problem with the DPS because they found that it's probably going to be somewhere between a 13 to a 20 minute wait time for DPS players because there's just so many more of them than there are of support and tank roles. And really, I mean, that can be solved by adding more support and more tank. You're still going to have those players that just want to do pew 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 and get all the eliminations and all that sort of stuff. That's never going to go away. But I think if they make support support and tanking more interesting, more fun, then you're going to have more people in those roles, and it will drag down the queue times for the DPS as a result. He also talked about reworking, and at the moment, they're not currently doing any reworks. He personally doesn't like reworking characters just to make them more interesting. He would rather add entirely new characters, which is perfectly fine. And again, I totally agree with him. Don't rework a character just to make it more interesting, but you do need to rework characters that are having significant problems, like Symmetra and Torbjorn. They're getting more, I mean, they're still not all that amazing, but Torbjorn and Symmetra are getting used more now than they ever did in the past. So clearly, those reworks have done some pretty significant things to help those characters, even though they're not quite where they need to be. Now, one of the issues that I have with this, when he says that they're not working on any reworks, is Bastion. He is still the absolute worst character in the game, the lowest pick rate. We're talking a pick rate of 0.0 something, right? Like, that is absolutely abysmal. Yes, he's being used at the pro level, but it's a map-specific, situational kind of cheese defense. It's not a long-standing, viable comp, right? So it's one of those things where, yeah, you can run it on the second point of Hanamura, but you really can't run it in a general sense. Like, Goat's comp is still the thing. And I do think that until they take Bastion out of that, you're kind of locked in place and you can't move kind of playstyle, I think he's always going to be problematic. And yes, I do have a rework video for Bastion. I've come up with several options that would all solve the current problems that the character has. I've just been waiting to see how much of an impact he's going to have in the Overwatch League, and as it turns out, it's not nearly as amazing as people have thought it originally was going to be. So I should have that video sometime soonish. I don't know exactly when. Couple more things we can quickly run through. Crossplay is something that a lot of you guys bring up during my Respawn series. Jeff Kaplan said that there are some serious technical issues that they would need to resolve, but beyond that, it's also more of a business issue because Sony has this policy where they don't want crossplay. Now, recently, they've started to loosen that up a little bit, but it's still a really significant hurdle. So even if they were to allow crossplay, it would be PC and Xbox. You know, you can't even have Sony in there. And I don't think Blizzard's going to want to do that until they can add all of them. The next thing is for comics. We didn't get one for the Storm Rising event, which I found really surprising because we've gotten them in the past. He did say there's supposed to be more. When that's happening, no idea. As far as the free-to-play, because I know this has popped up a couple of times, Jeff Kaplan said that it's not going to happen anytime soon. But the truth of the matter is, he doesn't get to make that decision. Activision and the other higher-ups at Blizzard get to make that decision. And really, I think it's inevitable that the game will go free-to-play. How long that's going to take, I don't know. It could be at the end of the year, it could be next year, but whenever it does happen, I would fully expect them to add some new form of microtransaction to the game. Maybe they'll allow you to buy individual skins, maybe they'll allow you to buy credits, whatever it is. If they go free to play, there's going to probably be some new stuff added to the game that you can pay real money for. Next is for the Nintendo Switch. This kind of goes into the crossplay thing, but they have no plans to add it to the Switch right now. It's not that they don't necessarily want to, it's just, again, there's a lot of technical issues with it. And then he also said that the top 2 requested features are a story mode or new game modes. But he said that a story mode would be essentially making an entirely new game, which does kind of make sense. But the thing is, they already have all of the things in place through the map maker and all of the other things that they need in order to create the enemies and the characters and all that sort of stuff. So it's not necessarily like they would have to start from scratch, but it would still take a massive, massive amount of effort to create all of the different campaigns, all the levels, because you imagine you would have to have at least maybe 20, 30 levels minimum in order for this to work. And making all of those maps is a massive, massive amount of effort. So it's not like they can just kind of slap it together. You know, when they're making events for Overwatch, they can take existing maps or they can create a new map like they did with Rialto and Havana, and they can kind of double it up, right? Like, we can use it for the event, but we can also add it to the regular game. Whereas for this story mode, you would basically be making all of these new maps for just the story mode. Now, could they take them and put them into the regular game as well? Sure. It would probably need a little bit of modification, but again, it's a significant amount of effort, and I just don't see it happening anytime soon. So there you go, guys. Tons of stuff. Once more, they are going to be adding the Havana map and that new PvP thing to the PTR very soon. But when is that going to happen? Maybe the end of this week, possibly next week, I'm not sure. But as soon as it does happen, I'll be sure to let you guys know all of the cool stuff. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.